All right. Katie, can you see that? All right, so tonight we're going to talk about female hormones, pretty much PMS to postmenopause. And I'm going to kind of run through the slides and everything and hope that we have a little time at the end so that way you guys can ask questions. So I'm just going to hope that everybody is on mute right now so nobody's getting interference back from me. So great, sounds like we're all ready and set to go. So I'm going to share a little bit of my story, my struggles, my frustrations, upsets, and of course some of my denials as well that I went through. And if you were on last month, you saw a little bit of this already, but some of the symptoms that I was suffering with years ago was severe abdominal bloating. Often people were asking me if I was 6 months pregnant. Later in the day, my stomach would just get that big. Frequently having abdominal pain. I couldn't get up and go, and that's not me. Sun's up, I'm up, and I go. Insomnia, waking from anywhere from 3:30 to 4 o'clock every morning. I was having negative thoughts. I was sad. I was depressed. Definitely not me. Having anxiety attacks. I didn't want to do things. I had gained excessive weight, in fact, about 10 pounds in a matter of just weeks. My bra size literally jumped up overnight, and the first time I needed to purchase clothes because none of them were fitting me. I was inflamed all over. Even my fingers got swollen that none of my rings could fit. Thought I was going to have my wedding band actually cut off of my finger. I was having flu-like symptoms. I lost hair in my eyelashes, on my head, my arms, and well, legs we could all give up, right? Hot flashes where my fingers got bright red, just very weird symptoms. No cycles for a year, random cycles for 3 years before that. Constipation, pain with intercourse, smelly gas, my vision was worsening, joint pain, back pain, headaches for no reason. Got to the point where I couldn't cross my legs because of pain and inflammation. So I went searching for some help. I saw 2 primary care physicians, 2 gynecologists, 2 massage therapists, craniosacral therapists, endocrine specialists. The list continues to go on. Had all kinds of testing, x-rays, ultrasounds, tons of blood work, even surgery. And I'm sure there's more things that I choose to block out of there. But then I was diagnosed with ovarian cysts, but I wasn't even told that until 3 years after the fact when I pushed for more testing. Several hormonal and nutritional deficiencies, constipation, which I didn't have, but the MD said he wanted me to take Miralax for a month and then return, which of course I did not. Menopause at 45 years old, the MDs wanted me to do hormone replacement therapy and also progesterone, which I also did not. So then I remembered you are what you eat. So the body makes new cells from what we eat, and you literally become your food. So you have a choice in what you're made out of. Tissues actually do regrow, and those that regrow are your nerve tissues, hormone regeneration, cartilage, joints, discs, bones, your cardiac, your heart cells regenerate, your red blood cells, they also regenerate every 120 days. So it takes time, but they do regenerate. So there's these little things called glyconutrients, and they will improve your immunity, your memory, concentration, your attentiveness, your mood and irritability, your digestion. They'll also improve the cellular communication function, which is what I feel is really important. So we need to change the cellular function, not treat a disease, right? Find the cause, treat the cause instead. So let's talk a little bit about a cycle. Some of us still have them, some of us don't, but it's really not a period. So those of you who aren't having them anymore, you have to think back about what were they like when you did have them at this point too, because it's an expression of your underlying health overall. So it's not just, oh, I'm not pregnant, but it really tells us how your body is functioning and what your health is like. So a healthy period is smooth, regular, no symptoms. It takes 120 days for an egg to turn over. Therefore, we have to look back 3 months to see why is it actually abnormal if we're having an issue. You should have a healthy mood, healthy metabolism and healthy weight, healthy hair, and healthy bones. The normal cycle is anywhere from 21 to 35 days with an average being 28 days. The first day of your cycle is the first day of heavy bleeding. And a cycle will last anywhere from 2 to 7 days, with the average being 3 to 5 days. But that also includes 1 or 2 days of light spotting at the very end of it. So how much should we lose? What's too much? Well, you should lose 50 milliliters, which is equal to about 3 tablespoons during your period. So it doesn't seem like a lot. It looks like a lot, but it really isn't that much. 50 milliliters would be 10 regular or 5 super tampons. Less than 25 is actually a scant. Tells us that there's some issue going on. But if you have over 80 milliliters, that's excessive. So there's quite a gap there as well. For those of you that have never heard of this thing called Diva Cup, I really love it because it's a silicone cup. So we now take away the issue of possibly having toxicity happen because of using tampons. Also, the bleach that's in there gets leached into our own cells at the same time, so that can create some toxicity. And then we also, the Diva Cup has measuring system, so we can measure what it is. So you insert this cup, and then once you go to the bathroom, you dump it in the toilet, and then you wash it and reinsert it. So it's reusable for years, which is also really nice. So there's something that we use, it's called a cycle diet. And a lot of times we don't realize that we're supposed to eat a certain way at a certain time of the month as well. So let me kind of go through that a little bit. When you're in the first half of your cycle, so the follicular phase, day 1 through 13, we should really be eating these foods. Avocados, wild salmon, walnuts, seeds, coconuts or Greek yogurt, coconut oil, almonds, spinach, broccoli, parsley. And our exercise should be a little bit different during this time too, because our estrogen is higher, which leads to more injuries. So stretching before and after you do a cardio workout or running is going to be super important. And sleep, your hormones and your body temperature kind of normalize after the first few days, so your sleeping should be pretty normal. So then we move into the ovulation phase, and that's going to be day 14. You only ovulate on day 14. It's not, oh, it's day 11, it's day whatever, it's day 14. But you have to remember when your first day actually is the first heavy bleed. It's not just when you start. So you need to eat, estrogen is plummeting during that time, so we want estrogen-rich fruits, foods like dried fruits, flaxseed, chickpeas, beans. And your exercise should actually be the lightest on that day because your hormones are changing over, and at that time you're more susceptible to injuries as well. So you'll be a little bit more sleepy on that day, so it's okay to take a nap. You have my permission. All right, so during the luteal phase, which is 15 to 28-ish, because remember it can go up to 35, we want to eat foods that are energy-rich foods. So they have more calories. We're eating more fats, more avocados, nuts, fishes, proteins. Your exercise at that time should be the highest. Okay, so short bursts of intense exercise are good to do during that time. And your sleep, your progesterone is up, so it can make you a little bit sleepy too, but you're also going to be making sure that you're getting at least 8 hours of sleep. Oops. So when it comes to birth control, I have to bring this up because it's such a strong suppressive of your hormones. So a lot of times they're giving for different reasons. If you're missing periods, they want to help to get it regulated, so they'll give birth control. If you have painful periods or too much bleeding, they try to give you birth control to stabilize that. If you have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, if you have endometriosis. But the problem is that it's overriding your own hormones and some of the symptoms. So we really don't know where you're at or where you're not healthy and how to fix it if we have something that's suppressing that from occurring. So, you know, the worst part of this too is some of you are also not just on birth control pills, but we're doing like the injections, or we're doing something that's constantly putting hormones into your system all the time, which makes it very hard and difficult for you to slough off, get rid of the toxins that your body is creating as well. So periods are super important for us to actually have. All right, so some of the hormones that we want to talk about are estradiol, estrone, and estrogen metabolites. So the estrogen, eventually, once we utilize what we need to, it actually gets broken down and used for other things. So I want to talk about this thing called the HPA axis. One of my good friends, Dr. Schipple, does a lot of teaching of this, and so this is one of her slides, so I'll give her credit for that. But you'll see the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary are actually parts of the brain. And those will make some releasing hormones and then affect the adrenal glands, which, I talk about the adrenal glands all the time because they're super important for hormones. But we have to realize is that it doesn't just start in our ovaries or our uterus. We may have to go all the way back to the brain and say, what is happening in the brain? Is the brain functioning the way that it's supposed to? Your hypothalamus actually regulates your temperature. So if we're having hot flashes and we're sweating at night, we might have to go all the way back and look at what's happening with the hypothalamus in the brain, not just what's happening in my ovaries or my uterus. So here's another thing that I thought was really interesting. So steroid hormone pathway, if you look at the very top, it's cholesterol. So we use cholesterol for a lot of things in our bodies. We use it for healing. The kidneys use it, the liver uses it. It decreases inflammation, but if we don't have enough cholesterol, i.e. if we're taking a cholesterol lowering medication, we also can't make sex hormones. So that could be another cause of hormonal issues. Because what you'll notice is once we go into stress, the adrenal glands handle all your stress. But if the adrenal glands become fatigued or they're in exhaustion, now what happens is we bypass and we never go to the sex hormones at all. And we also don't go to the kidneys. We go straight down to progesterone, to cortisol, and then down to the liver. So we're making cortisone, okay? But if we don't have enough cholesterol, these things are all going to be lower, which means we're gonna have more inflammation, less hormones to be able to conceive, to have a normal period. So a lot of these things we have to look at, how are the adrenal glands functioning? How is the brain functioning? The little glands in the brain that need to work. So it's really not just the ovaries. So estradiol is your queen estrogen. It's made from developing follicles. It's your happy hormone. So it stimulates mood, libido. It increases neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine. It increases sleep, skin and bone health, and vaginal lubrication. It stimulates uterine lining to grow and thicken to prepare for a baby. And if we don't get pregnant, then what happens is we slough that off and we have our period. If we have a thicker lining, you're going to have a heavier period. But also, when the estrogen is high, the thyroid is low. So now we add another component into it, right? Estrone is made from fat tissues. So the more fat we have, we make more of that hormone as well. Estrogen metabolites are actually from the intestinal bacteria. So if we have an overgrowth of bacteria or candida in our gut, then we're going to create more of these estrogen metabolites as well. So getting that handled is a problem, or is a good thing to do. So some of the problems that I found through all my research too is in the cord blood, you have 287 chemicals. Cord blood is what is in a brand new human being. Their cord blood is the umbilical cord, and what is in that. We had 190 of those that caused cancer, and 217 of them were neurotoxins. That's a huge problem because now what's happening is we're coming out and we're already toxic, okay? So 1 in 5 couples are having fertility issues. Heavy metals are a big problem as well, and we're finding that these are in your deodorants, they're in the water, pesticides, herbicides, the large fish, your vaccines, old dental fillings, and sometimes even in your air. So we have to take as much of that out of our system as we possibly can, making sure that we're not doing a deodorant that has aluminum in it, making sure that we're eating as organic as we can. If we have old fillings, finding a specialty doctor who can replace those with the resin instead of the mercury fillings. Xenoestrogens will actually mimic our hormones binding to the estrogen receptor sites, and that causes the estrogen dominance that's linked to PMS, fibroids, endometriosis, the heavy bleeding, the clotting, sore breasts, issues with liver detoxing, issues with decrease in progesterone that can lead to miscarriages. These are found in our plastics, in our beauty products. Our perfume is really high in it, and even in our tap water. So for your water, have a filter for sure, making sure that you're using glass or stainless steel if you're carrying it around, not the plastic bottles. Check your beauty products. If you use perfume, that's okay, just don't spray it on your body, spray it on your clothes first instead of you. Ovulation is extremely important even when you don't get pregnant, because it's the only way we make that estradiol and the progesterone too. So formation can be impaired by inflammation, by having thyroid disease, by insulin sensitivity. So there's also deficiencies that can cause this if we have deficiency in cholesterol, magnesium, iodine, vitamin D, which can lead to infertility if we have a deficiency in that as well, vitamin B, zinc, and selenium. So these are all things that really should be addressed to see, do we have a deficiency in there, because we can get those, we can supplement to rebuild that back. So the thyroid, insufficient thyroid hormone impairs the insulin sensitivity, and it also stimulates prolactin. And sometimes by adding inositol or selenium, that can actually help that repair. And it's funny enough that just one Brazil nut a day is enough selenium that we need in our whole day. So if you can eat Brazil nuts, then add one in every day and you'll have your selenium for the day. But the thyroid is supported by the sister gland, the adrenal glands. So you can see this web that is created. It's not just one thing. We have to really look at the body as a whole to get it treated properly. Thyroid disease now affects 1 in 5 females, and 50% of them are going undiagnosed. When it's undiagnosed, it worsens the insulin resistance, which worsens the thyroid function. It causes irregular cycles. So we have this cyclic thing that continues on. Low functioning thyroid means you can't balance the blood sugars, your cholesterol, which means you cannot lose weight either. So super important to make sure the thyroid is functioning properly, because that hormone requires us to eliminate the cholesterol, and therefore if we can't eliminate it, we're going to have increased cholesterol. Then we take a lowering medication. Well, now the thyroid's going to push out more. So it's going to continue this process until we find the cause, fix the cause. So if we have no healthy storage of glycogen, which is a sugar, and how we process fats into sugars, that means the liver can't convert T4 to T3, which is part of what the thyroid is there for, which fuels the metabolism. So now we have a lower metabolism. We can see our weight is going to go up as well. And now if our weight goes up, we produce more of these estradiol, the hormones, right? And now we can never lose the weight. So we want to check in the thyroid. You can check at home as soon as you wake up in the morning. Put a thermometer under your armpit, take the reading, do 3 readings, and take the average. It should be 97.6 degrees or higher. If it is not, then your metabolism is obviously low, but you also have thyroid dysfunctioning, and then we need to get a handle and repair on that. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, is when we have irregular periods, facial hair, acne, infertility, hair loss, obesity. Also, we can see an increase in testosterone and some other androgens. In the follicular stage of your cycle, 6 to 8 follicles are going to go to the ovary for ovulation. All of them are trying to mature at the same time, which means none of them get to mature because there's too many in there, and the body's working too hard to get them. So what we'll see on an ultrasound, usually the MD will say these are cysts. Well, when they redo the ultrasound in 4 to 6 weeks, well, they're gone. So you really have to have a blood test to truly diagnose if you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. So the blood test we want to see, is there an increase in androgens, DHEA, testosterone, and androstenone, or do we also see that there's an increase in LH or this decrease in the sex hormone binding globulin? So we really should see all these things to really diagnose whether you have PCOS or not. And it's not a disease, it's a syndrome. There are causes. There's insulin resistance, pill-induced, and inflammatory. So insulin resistance is about 70% of them, which means we're not processing sugars properly. Glucose is going to fat. Leptin now makes you hungry, so you want to eat all the time, which means you're going to gain more weight, and you have heavier periods during this time because more follicles are being produced and released. It increases your risk for diabetes, for cancer, for osteoporosis, dementia, even heart disease. So how can we help this? Well, we have to quit eating sugars. You can have green bananas, green mangoes, because they actually have low glycemic indexes. So, fruits will feed these things. So because of the sugars that's in there. Need to get 8 hours of sleep or more to make sure that we can repair the body, because your body only repairs in sleep. We want to supplement with magnesium, chromium picolate, vitamin D, inositol, berberine for about 3 months. We do 6 days a week, and then we stop for a month after that. Intermittent fasting. So we can, kind of make sure, unless you have diabetes, obviously, then there's different protocols that go with this. But anywhere from 14 to 24 hours, you can do it intermittently. You can't do that daily. It's not safe to do that. But, have 14 hours between the last meal of the day to the next meal of the first meal of the next day. Strength training exercises also is a really good help for these. If it's pill-induced, you'll have irregular periods that were normal before the period, and they usually will resolve pretty quickly once you go off of the birth control pill. And they're not insulin resistance, so we can get some help with getting the cycle back into check by using peony, chaste tree, and licorice, usually within about a month, depending upon how long you've been on the pill. 3 months, usually, I think, is about the longest that I've had somebody. Inflammatory, the symptoms are unexplained fatigue, headaches, joint pain, skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis. We can help that with, feeding the gut, making sure we get the gut under control, and adding some zinc. Eating fermented foods is a great help for these things as well, repairing the gut, like I said, and then decreasing that inflammation. What are some hidden causes of PCOS? Soy. So I recommend that everybody just take soy out of your diet. Low carb diet can also be a cause of PCOS, artificial sweeteners, thyroid disease, and deficiencies in the vitamin D, selenium, or iodine. Now, you don't just add iodine, you also have to be tested for iodine to make sure that you need it, because it can have adverse effects if you do not need that. And we have a skin patch test that we can do here in the office if you're wondering about that or concerned. So endometriosis actually requires a surgical diagnosis, so they have to do a histoscope to go in. So generally they want to put you under for this because they have to dilate you, which, if you've had babies, it's not the greatest feeling. So cells that are to be released from the uterus will thicken, but then what happens is they go outside and they attach to other tissues, which then bleed and become inflamed because they're not where they're supposed to be. Now we have bleeding inside of the gut area instead of in the uterus, where then we can release it like we're supposed to. So symptoms of endometriosis are pain, infertility, scarring, inflammation, and autoimmunity. So to help with endometriosis, I find it really important to decrease or eliminate dairy, processed foods, animal products, sugar, those endocrine disruptors that we talked about earlier, right? So the plastic bottles, things in plastic, and gluten. Also, we need to increase vegetables and fruits, use plastic or use glass, not plastic, and check your cosmetics. So once we hit menopause, some really great things are wild yam, gives us some symptom relief and balances the endocrine system, because we have to really go back and say, what were our periods like? If we didn't get a handle on that, we still have to fix that issue and repair it. Rhodiola and Schisandra also helps with energy and emotional support. And Tribulus, I love Tribulus, and I just found out that it's out of production for right now. So I'm coming up with some other things that we can do in place of it, but it really helps with well-being, vitality, and hormone production. Some other helpful supplements are vitamins E and C, but you want to make sure it's the whole complex, not just part of it, which unfortunately is what we get over the counter a lot of times. Ginseng is a zinc, copper mix, so we're getting actually 3 different things in there. Drenamine, pituitrophin, thyrotrophin. Remember, the pituitary gland can also play a part into this, or the thyroid. We also have one that's called Simplex F, and Simplex F is the pituitary, adrenal, thyroid, and ovaries all in one. So that's really good for women. We have a men version as well, but cholesterol. So if you do not have a gallbladder, you cannot make vitamin D very well. So you can be deficient in D if you don't have a gallbladder, and the cholesterol will help you be able to produce that vitamin D. So super important that you're on that if you do not have a gallbladder. Wheat germ oil is a hormone precursor. And some of the herbs that I really like for this are ashwagandha, chase tree, femco, and the rhodiola ginseng. So we have rhodiola with ginseng, and we have also rhodiola with schisandra. So, of course, we'll test to see which one is best for you. So digestion is super important because we actually get rid of excessive hormones that if we have too much, we get rid of it in our digestive tract by having bowel movements. So we have to make sure those are moving well. But after you're eating, the first 2 hours, you're going to burn your carbs. And then 3 to 4 hours after you eat, you're going to burn fat. 5 to 6 hours after that, you're going to burn body fat. So if we're eating every 2 hours, we're never going to burn the fat either. So we have to make sure we're leaving space between those times to break down the food, burn off the food, and maybe even burn off our own body fat if we have access. So if you become hungry, though, you could drink water and wait and see if that calms your stomach and makes it fine. If not, you actually probably need to eat more fats. You're not getting enough fat in your diet. You want to make sure you're eating in a calm state and chew your food well. If we're in a hyper state where go, 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 then what that means is that your body is putting blood in other places. It's not putting the blood where it needs to be, which is in the digestive tract to digest your food. So you will not digest your food properly, which means you will not take up the nutrients properly either. You need to have 1 to 3 bowel movements per day to make sure that you're ridding the excessive hormones. Some supplements that can help with digestion are Zypan, Digest, Gut Flora. The GI Stability is actually brand new. I love this product. So if you have questions on it, ask, because you've never heard of it before. They just came out with it 2 weeks ago. Rhodiola and schisandra. So we also have an issue with these acid blockers. It's decreasing protein absorption and the breakdown of the proteins. And they also do not allow you to take up B vitamins, especially B12 or calcium. Both are super important for body function, including the nerves, the heart. Every cell has calcium in it. So super important for these, because if we have less acid and we can't uptake them, it can cause depression. It decreases your body's ability to repair itself. We get constipation, have bowel issues, brittle hair. You can get pneumonia. You can get gut infections if you do not have enough acid in your belly. So we have to make sure we're drinking enough water, stay hydrated. Make sure you're getting good omega-3s and sleep before midnight. Okay, preferably even before that, but no blue light at least 1 hour before you go to bed so that you are able to rest and sleep. The brain can shut down for repair. So are we poisoning ourselves? Well, we have to look at food sensitivity. Some of you have already done the food sensitivity test. This was my test. So I had 39 sensitivities. It goes in levels 1, 2, and 3. It's a take-home kit. Do a finger prick, send it off in the mail. Within a couple of weeks, we usually have it back. And then we teach you, what to eat, what not to eat, and how to add things back in later. And also, you can do the Candida test right there with it. So we know, is there actually something going on in the gut? Do you have some kind of, not just infection, but actually an overgrowth of these things? Because we said, remember that overgrowth can also make extra hormones. Okay, so then we can be making too much of one certain kind, the metabolite hormones as well. So this will tell you, do you have a recent growth? Do you have a growth in the gut itself? Do we have a chronic growth going on? So is it new? Is it old? There's also an inflame test, and I like the one that we have because it tells you your overall inflammation if you do indeed have an inflammatory response happening, but it also tests if there's a deficiency in omega-3 fatty acids. So it'll test you between the omega-3s and the omega-6s and tell us where are you at, what do we need to supplement to make sure that goes up for the body to be able to repair. If you're in an inflammatory state, you cannot heal. It's hard to control pain levels as well. And that leads to more gain of weight, depression, and even anger. So some of the best exercises for hormonal issues is no longer than 30 minutes a day. You want to make sure that you have low impact and interval training, and you're alternating your heart rate. So raising it up for a minute and then letting it cool down. More strenuous exercises when the hormones are high, like we talked about earlier, and less exercise, more stretching, more yoga when the hormones are lower. And the body takes energy from the hormones when it's under stress. Okay, so we could be stealing things from that. So we've got to handle the stress, which i.e. is going to be the adrenal glands if they're in fatigue as well. I put this in here because a lot of people have asked me, what do you use for deodorant? I can't find one that actually works. All the natural ones. So if you use doTERRA or you have somebody that is, sells doTERRA, Balance, I really love too because it helps to calm the nervous system down and ground you as well. So if you have questions on that, I can hook you up, getting you set up to order it yourself, or I can order it for you, whatever is easiest for you. So let's kind of recap. We need to listen to your body, number one, because it's telling you a story of what's going on or what was happening in the past. We may still have to go back and find out, okay, how were your periods? What were they like? We have to support the adrenal glands and the thyroid gland, but also we have to support the brain function because we might have to go all the way up to the main hub, right? Exercise appropriately, get enough sleep, know your food sensitivities and get them eliminated, support the gut, eliminate sugars, and then we want to supplement for any deficiencies that you may have going on. So if you haven't already, go there and check out our website. We're going to try to see about putting this on the website in a link later. So if you have questions, you can go there. If you want to refer someone to listen to it, we'll send out a blast email and let you know when that goes out. If you haven't already gone on and liked us on Facebook, go to FrisinaFamilyWellness.com or Frisina Family Wellness. And on Instagram, we're Frisina.family.wellness. So any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask me questions. We've got about 5 minutes left of time, so we did really well.
Where were you 60 years ago when I needed you?
I wasn't even thought of yet.
I know. Because I started out with 2 periods a month.
Wow.
And heavy bleeding.
Yeah.
And a lot of pain.
Okay.
Yeah. And that never got better.
Yeah. And now that's what we're repairing, right? All the gut stuff too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, it really does go back that far, even though you might be 60, 70 years old, we might have to go back and say, what were your periods really like at that time? Because that was telling you something at that time was going on,
Right, yeah.
We do more testing now and we find, okay, yeah, I had a gut issue and oh my gosh, I've had this gut issue for X amount of time. Or my pituitary gland has not been functioning great for X number of years. But those are things that, we can do simple supplementation, natural things, and help to not just the symptoms, but really repairing it so that it doesn't continue to be another issue and another issue and another issue, the snowball effect.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, I guess I did my job and taught you all well, and now your heads are swimming, but You can always, of course, ask me, if you're in the office, or go to our website too. You can, Frisina Family Wellness, and you can send us messages through there, and we'll promptly get back to you within a day or two. Or go to Facebook and send us messages through there too. We love questions. We love answering them. We want to make sure that you have as much knowledge as possible so that you can be as healthy as you possibly can. And that's what our purpose is, and that's why we're here. So hope you all have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you all soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
My pleasure.